Breaking news. Australia is still upside down. A Florida man has been put in jail, and this is the tech.
That's Spanx, long-time member, first-time intro doer. Yeah. I'm wearing headphones today. So sorry if you guys are upset about the headphones, then I'll just go throw them in the river. I'll throw them right in the river. I'm in a new location, as you guys can see. Long story, I'm not going to tell it right now, but I'm in a new location, and I don't know where my earbuds are. They're somewhere. I haven't unpacked everything yet, but we're so dedicated. We're going to make videos instead of unpack, and I'm going to use these headphones. Also, we are going to be at PAX starting right about almost now. Like right about now, we're going to be at PAX. We've got a bunch of videos coming. Kane's going to be there. Pistol's going to be there. Wendell, you're going to be where? Somewhere else doing work.
I'm going to be elsewhere for PAX, sadly.
Yeah. So maybe PAX Prime though. That's the big one. Also, we have an editor coming, so that's going to be awesome. And listen to this. You guys need to watch every single PAX video because in every video we are going to give away something. We have AData and Corsair hooking us up with all kinds of really awesome prizes. So we've got some what do we have in there? I've got some SSDs. I've got some battery charger packs that are pretty awesome, like the portable chargers for your phones. You guys will see tomorrow. There'll be lots of things. We've got K70 keyboards. We've got just all kinds of things. Headphones, mice, and several other awesome things. Maybe even something big. So at the end of each episode, we're going to, tell you guys what the item is, tell you a little bit about it, and tell you how you guys can win it. So stay tuned for that. Now let's now let's talk about what's happened this week. Windows XP is it's not dead, but the support has finally ended from Microsoft. This is a strange day. Windows XP was the one. That was the Windows. Remember when that came out? I was so excited. I
the Jesus of operating systems, if you will.
Yeah, it was, man. I have so many fond memories of so many awesome, games and just like learning a few things about, I don't know, bothering different networks and stuff.
I'll be honest. I had Windows 2000 on a dual processor. I think it was a Pentium 3, and it was on the hardware compatibility list for Microsoft, because if you used Windows 2000 and you just had a random computer, you were in for a bad time. You had to be using they had to be using all parts on the Windows 2000 compatibility list. And I did not like Windows XP when it first came out. By Service Pack 1, they fixed everything that I complained about. But I used Windows 2000 until Service Pack 1.
In Service Pack 2, it got really, really good. And then I used that pretty much up until Windows 7, just about. I mean, Vista was like, what am I going to do with this? Like, I didn't know what to do with it. And then there's Windows ME. That was awesome.
Well, see, ME, I really think that Microsoft should have been fined because Windows ME was based on Windows 98, and it came out after Windows 2000. It was literally the Windows 98 code base is dead. Let's get one more Hail Mary out of this and steal people's money, and it's never going to amount to anything, and there we have the home operating system that is Windows ME.
Man, that was clunky.
I mean, come on, you should have just been like, here, everybody have Windows 2000, because Windows ME was terrible.
Well, it is sad to see XP go. It's not truly going to be gone. I can see a lot of different businesses, a lot of governments they're not going to upgrade. I mean, I'd say a large population in China is not going to upgrade. That's what I've heard, especially about Internet Explorer 6, which is also dead. Thank God that it's dead, but I don't know. Wendell, are you still going to be programming for IE6 even though it's quote-unquote dead?
No, we stopped programming for IE6 probably about 2009. Some government customers use it, which is like... But pretty much IE6, 7, and 8 now are dead. It's not just IE6. It's just that IE6 came with Windows XP, and so everybody's like, oh, IE6 is dead. But if you just Google IE6 eulogy, there's a whole bunch of eulogies, some of them 5 years old. But to me, the death of XP really takes with it IE8. And so now IE9 Plus. And that's not as bad. Like, if it really is IE9 Plus is what you have to support, as a web developer, that's not really completely terrible, although Internet Explorer is still in left field with some things, and it's really frustrating.
What was like IE6 would always double the margins and stuff, and I don't know, all kinds
i6's
of
document
things.
processor was made by a drunk monkey.
It's like, oh, it looks like you have the 10 pixel padding. Let's make that 20. All right, there you go. Everything's great. Yeah. Nope, it's gone. There it is on the screen, Firefox and Chrome. Firefox really disrupted the market, a lot of people will say, but I think they really kind of fixed the market, and they forced Internet Explorer to kind of get their act together. I haven't really tried the new one. A lot of people have been telling me that the new one is awesome. What is it, IE 11 now they're on?
Yeah.
And I haven't played with it much. I've got Windows 8.1, and it's on there somewhere, I think. I removed the links to it on the desktop, but I'm sure if I wanted to go into the Windows start screen, I could find it. But I don't know. Is there any reason to try IE 11? Is it better in any way compared to the other other browsers?
There's absolutely no reason to try Internet Explorer, because fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice. Wait, no, that's not right.
You sound like George Bush now. Fool me.
I have a cold, so I'm only firing on like 3 neurons.
Fool me, you can't get fooled again.
Yeah. W.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Trying to put food on their family.
No, it's really like Internet Explorer 11. I have some experience with that on the Surface as well, and it just doesn't feel right. It has a funny taste to it, if you will.
Did you get the Windows 8.1 update by chance?
I did.
I downloaded it on my machine. You got it as well?
Yes.
Yeah, it's I can't really tell what all they've added because I don't use any of the features that they've added. I've been using Start as Back for a while, and I'm going to continue to use Start as Back. The big update that everyone's waiting for is the new Start button, and the new Start button is going to be like the first time they made Windows 8.1, and they're like, hey, we're going to give you guys a Start button, and then you click on it, and it brings up the Start screen, which is not what we wanted. We didn't want a button to take us to Shitville. We wanted a button that acted like a Start button for the desktop. So the update for that is not included in this update, which came on April 8th, and we're still waiting for a true Start button. It's going to be like sort of a hybrid between the Start screen and the old school desktop Start button. And that's what we're waiting on. Maybe I'll move away from Start as Back finally.
This update
I don't
does
know.
fix a lot of keyboard shortcuts that should have been there since day one. So
Yeah.
here we are a year later, 18 months later, I'm sorry. So yeah, keyboard people. Oh yeah, there are those people in the world. Not everybody has a touch screen.
I've been slapping my screens, and it just doesn't do anything. And they've also given us the ability to have the taskbar and the start bar and all that on the bottom, even when you're on the quote unquote. I just call it Metro, the Start interface, the Metro interface. You can even have it there. And for the modern apps, there's now minimize and close buttons up in the top right corner. So they're making it more mouse friendly, but it's still I don't know. Still, for me, it's just not a desktop thing. Once they get the Start button in there, then I'll maybe play with it a little bit. But until then, not happening, guys.
I thought this update was going to bring the taskbar on top of Metro apps, and I so far haven't been able to make that happen.
Okay, it happened once for me, and now it went away, but I haven't played with it anymore since then. But it actually was there. And then my computer did like a reboot today. Like while I was using the computer, it didn't even say, sometimes it'll be like, hey, your computer must reboot to, do the changes. Click here to delay or click here to whatever. Didn't even do that. I was typing an email, and then just the screen popped up, and it was like installing updates and rebooting. And I was like, I have no choice, like none. So
I suspect there's a line of code in there that's like, if Bozo has one monitor on top of another monitor, go sub, screw you. And that's just my problem.
Oh, man. Have you seen the time?
Uh-oh, is it rant 30 already? What's going on?
It's rant 30 already. We're going to rant a little bit about Samsung. Now, Samsung, a lot of people out there might think that we like Samsung. No, we just hate Apple more than we hate Samsung, but we still hate Samsung a lot around here. I mean, at least I do. I can't speak for you as well, but
I don't know that I hate Samsung. I just think that they're a hideously evil company, and most people don't realize just how hideously evil they are.
Samsung is suing a newspaper because of a negative review. Now, first off, they didn't want to... God, these guys are ridiculous. I mean, before we get into how messed up that is, it is possible that the newspaper may have said something that was incorrect. But, I mean, traditionally, if a reviewer gets a function or a feature wrong, what's the course of action? To call them and tell them, hey, fix that or whatever? I don't know. Do you sue them for slander? Or?
Usually they just issue a correction unless it's just really egregious and they're trying to they're trying to damage the company or whatever, or there's a collusion or, a conflict of interest, something like that.
Historically, Samsung has tried to silence reporters who say negative things. They hate negative press. They go after people, and they're also kind of psychotic when it comes to their brand. And we can go back, go back in time a little bit here. This is a ridiculous lawsuit. If you guys remember, I think we even talked about this, but a couple of bloggers were flown to an event, and they were flown there by Samsung. Now, Samsung was not the only person at this event. However, I guess Samsung felt that, because we flew these bloggers here to this press event to check out the new products, that they should be forced to wear Samsung shirts and Samsung gear, Samsung hats, or whatever. Now, these are independent bloggers. Now, before you guys go saying, well, of course, if Samsung paid for it, they should expect that. Let me tell you guys how the industry works. When a media, or when a company, not a media company, when a vendor has a new product, they need to get the media involved. They need to create some buzz, and they also want the media to write about it, blog about it, talk about it, write reviews. So what they'll do is they'll have a media event, and they will fly people there to the event so they can see it. I mean, it would be kind of difficult to call up, bloggers and be like, hey, we're having an event, in England or in New York City or whatever, and we want you to fly there on your own dime and check it out. People will be like, well, we can't afford it. So in order to get the buzz going, they fly people there. Anyway, they left these guys stuck at the airport, and they were like, you guys can't come with us unless you wear Samsung t-shirts,
You have to mingle, and it was just kind of this weird manipulative thing.
And then
this happened a long time ago.
Yeah, and then they said they were going to cancel their flights back as well. So they were going to leave them stranded there.
Yeah, it's like, good luck with your hotel and flight back. And it's like, what? So, but even though this happened a long time ago, we're mentioning it because there may be a pattern of behavior here with Samsung.
Yeah, and this is a very soft rant 30. But that's why I wanted to bring it up, because we need to watch companies when they pull shenanigans like this. And Samsung is one of the worst when it comes to trying to control what the media says, and also just being bullies and that sort of thing, and just being kind of freaking psycho. If you just watch the industry, they're kind of freaking psycho about things. So keep an eye on them, and let's. I don't know if it's going to change the way they do business. They're particular.
Concern. It could just be the marketing department that's off the rails, because Samsung's doing other interesting stuff. They've got all this graphene research. They've got a new kind of graphene, and it's going to do whatever, and flexible displays, and because they're a huge company, they're pouring a lot of money into R&D and cool products and things like that. But come on, don't coerce bloggers. Don't coerce reviewers. If somebody reviewed something and they got it wrong because they're an old fart, it is what it is. Take your lumps, and don't be all sue happy. That's what Steve Jobs does, and we don't subscribe to the church of Steve Jobs.
Google is killing a fake antivirus app. Now this is really funny because, there's a fake antivirus app that was put onto the Play Store, and it hit #1. And here's the funny thing. It was not a free app. It was $3.99. So it hopped up 10,000 downloads. They made around $400. They made around $40,000, and the app had almost no functionality. Google pulled it, but the app, why were people buying it? The main thing that it was doing, it didn't remove any viruses or anything like that. It did have the ability to block some ads, but as far as the virus removal functionality, all it really did was have, when you touched it, it would just change the color of the icon to make you think that something was actually happening. And they've even put the source code up here, right? You can click on the GitHub link right here on the website and take a look at it and just see what it does. But
it's a reverse engineered set of source code, but it's pretty trivial.
It's almost hilarious that they got away with this. The people are just that eager to buy fake apps.
This is very sad, because this basically says that the App Store is a giant pile of crap, basically. And that's really bad, because already Android people don't really install apps on their devices the way that Apple, people with Apple devices in the Apple App Store, install devices. And I think that's really unfortunate, both as a developer and an app consumer, because I ought to be able to get good, high-quality apps on the App Store that can be trusted to behave well. And this makes it very difficult, because now everybody's like, oh, the Google-sanctioned Play Store is a giant pile of crap. And I'm sure that Google's very, very embarrassed by this as well.
Well, I mean, especially the fact that it got to number one. I know it's pretty easy to get an app onto the Play Store, but reaching number one with a paid app, I think paid app should have to go through a more stringent process because I mean, if it was free and I mean, it's not like doing anything malicious. It wasn't installing malware. They were just ripping people off. And some of the people here in the comments on the register.co.uk were like, oh, well, it wasn't doing anything malicious. And I was like, well, other than the fact that it didn't do anything and it was taking people's money.
This is
that's a bit malicious.
This is the equivalent of Bonzi Buddy. You guys remember Bonzi Buddy? The internet was a thing, and it's like, I'm going to download a talking ape and put it on my taskbar. This is the mobile current, time version of that, and so it just makes me sad.
I feel like I'm having a Bonzi Buddy.
Yeah.
I remember a talking parrot, too, that we used to talk to. Would that have anything to do with that, or no? It's different technology?
Yeah, it's just all those applications were terrible.
Yeah.
Like, what did you do to your computer? I don't understand.
Oh, man. So that was a big mistake, and it was costly to a lot of people, but only $4 worth of costliness. Yeah. Apple and Google, they may have to pay $9 billion in an anti-poaching class action suit. Now, here's what happened, and I think a lot of this really started with Steve Jobs, because Google, they didn't exactly recruit Apple people, but they didn't rule them out. I guess they did kind of actively pursue some people that were working at Apple. And
Look,
Steve Jobs,
working at Apple is a terrible company. Like, it's not an enjoyable experience. Apple is a desirable company to have on your resume, I suppose. And so a lot of people put up with a lot of crap, and I believe that for the vast majority of people, working at Apple is not an enjoyable experience. And as time goes on, that will be reflected in the quality of their products. That said, people inside Google looked up to and or feared Steve Jobs.
Yeah, it was weird. And Steve Jobs would send these irate emails or make irate phone calls, and then everything would bounce around, like Sergey Brin here in this email. His email back seemed somewhat reasonable. He was like, so I got an irate call from Jobs today, guys. Apparently somebody at Google was recruiting an entire team from Apple. He's like, listen, just maybe keep talking to the one person, but not the entire team, and don't let Jobs be a total turnoff, but we can't deal with Jobs at the same time. It's kind of, I don't know, this email doesn't seem too bad, but there were other emails from Eric Schmidt and from other guys where they were saying, like, listen, Jobs is pissed off that we're recruiting his people. He says he's not going to recruit our people. We just shouldn't recruit his people. And that's illegal. You can't do stuff like that. That's, if that's bad for the individual. It's good for the company, but it's bad for the individual. And, as bad as the laws are, when it comes to this sort of thing, the laws are usually more on the side of the individual than they are on the side of the company. When it comes to, just, I guess, worker laws, I don't know.
The reality is that by doing this, they collude to keep wages artificially low for something very much in demand. And that's how it damages the individual, which by some miracle in American law is frowned upon and also highly illegal. But not mentioned in this article, but also in France, Google may have skipped opening a French office because there were some French employees they wanted. And Steve Jobs is like, what are you doing? And it's like, oh, sorry, Steve, we didn't mean to do anything to upset the boat here. Yeah, we're not going to open a French office now. So it's not just America, it's international.
Man, it seems like Google is just like huddling in a corner like, Steve, please don't hit us. Please don't hit us again, Steve, please.
Well, I think the attitude inside, I mean, if you look at Google, a lot of their machines are Linux and Mac. Windows is the minority share inside Google.
That's because they need it to work.
Well, if you use Linux, you probably really like the system architecture of a Mac because it's Unix underneath, and you could do a lot of cool stuff with that. And it's a really well-supported thing that has a lot of commercial software on it, and the whole legacy of Apple having existed since the 80s, so it's got that inertia of applications that Linux maybe doesn't have. And so inside Google, everybody's like, they've got a really terrific product, it just works, it's great, blah, 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 whatever they believe. And so I think that's part of it. I think that's part of the whole, let's not piss off Steve Jobs because we need, somebody to align with in the hardware sector, and it's not going to be Microsoft. So what do we do?
All right, let's go over to Europe. there's a really, really cool stuff going on in Europe right now. Now, an EU court has rejected an EU-wide data retention law. Now, here's what happened. A few years ago, I guess in 2006, there was an EU data retention directive. And the data retention directive said that the ISPs and the different companies like that had to retain information, like private information, for 6 months, and they could retain that information for up to 2 years. And this was mainly so that law enforcement officials and government officials could get at that data if they needed it. They really needed it for security reasons. However, a court in, I believe it was Luxembourg, a court in, let's see, scroll down, I believe it's Luxembourg. A court in Luxembourg decided that that was a violation of human rights and privacy rights, and right now they're going to rewrite those laws. So, this really gets down to the privacy versus security debate. And what's interesting is there's a British government spokesman came out, and he was like, listen, we can't do this. It's going to compromise security. So it seems like, the UK and the USA are two countries that are more willing to sacrifice freedoms and sacrifice, the individual's privacy in order to gain some sort of idea of security, even though that's never been proven to be the case. The taking away freedoms has never really, I haven't seen any bit of proof that that's improved any security. In fact, sometimes that could make it worse, because then I guess you piss people off, and that's not good for security, is it? Well, anyway, the rest of Europe seems to have a better idea when it comes to this sort of thing. So hats off to the EU for this decision. Could be really interesting. You have any further insights into this?
I think that this is a good precedent. It's good that somebody's saying, well, perhaps we shouldn't vacuum up all the digital information and then sort it out later, because we're going to vacuum up a lot of stuff that is personal, private information that's very important. The thing that always surprises me is the people in the U.S. and the U.K. that are okay with this, because World War II wasn't that long ago. And growing up hearing stories from a relative that fought in World War II is like, there's a lot of really scary parallels here. And, the individualism that sort of gives you a wake-up call. And I feel like that some of the other countries in the EU are looking at this and saying, maybe we shouldn't build a giant national database of everything that we can just search and trawl at will. Because ultimately that's what this stuff feeds into. Once the data is collected, it's more work to delete it later than it is to, just keep it forever. And that's ultimately what happens. We've been doing that here.
The bottom line really with all this is that, and what the courts found in their rebuttal to the spokesman from the British government, it was really they said, listen, if we allow this to happen, there's no system in place to stop abuse. And that's the problem, is that it's going to be prone to abuse. So there you have it.
We might have said that before in the past, and it's like, we don't know anything. We're just some random YouTube channel in some dark corner of the internet, and we're like, hey, wouldn't this thing be subject to abuse? And the people in power are like, no, damn it, we're headed straight to hell and full steam ahead.
Well, that's something. There's been a lot of stuff that's been echoing things that we've been saying for the last year. And I do not have a big head. I don't think that people are watching our videos and coming up with this stuff. I think that this is it's a natural response to the things that are happening with various governments. It's society's natural response to go in this direction. And here's a prime example of this. There's a new animated web series right now. I believe it's on Indiegogo, and it's about copyright, and it's about culture. And if you play this video here, let me just turn this down. A lot of the things that they are talking about are almost spot on from an outline that Wendell sent me, and then we subsequently made a video about this, talking about how sharing is culture, and when people attack our ability to share things, they're really attacking who we are as a society. People live to share things. It's a beautiful thing, So this video right here, it's just like your outline, man. And I do think that's society's response.
Yeah, it's part of culture. And so this first video seems like a pretty good introduction. They're going to do a video once a month for 8 months on how copyright law has sort of perverted culture, at least culture as it has existed in humanity for the last 800,000 years. And you guys should look at that, because you should think about things independently. You shouldn't just listen to what people say. You should look at and evaluate on your own. And so you've got Lawrence Lessig, who we've talked about before, is a law professor, and Richard Dawkins and talking about this kind of thing and how things happen and it's a call and response. And so you see a song or you hear a song that you like, or you see a movie that you like, or whatever. That's the call, and your response is what you do with that. So the YouTube videos of, a baby dancing to a popular song, that's a response to the call. It's cultural. It's in our DNA. And companies are like, no, that's mine. That's very bad for culture, and that's very bad for we as a society.
I didn't include this article, but there was the DMCA is completely ridiculous. There was a guy, and I forget if he was bike riding across the Brooklyn Bridge or walking across the Brooklyn Bridge, but in the background of his video, there was a guy dressed up like Michael Jackson dancing to some music, and his video received a DMCA takedown notice. That to me is an attack on culture. You should be able to, it's by law, you're allowed to go into public and just record stuff. If there's background noise, there's background noise. You're not breaking any laws by recording that sort of thing, unless you're recording a performance like a concert or something like that. But if you're just walking around in the streets and some guy's dancing and has a boombox playing Michael Jackson, number one, that does not harm the original material. If anything, it's going to make people go like, oh, I love that song. I need to go on iTunes and buy it, or I need to go on the Google Play and buy it, or I need to go to the store and buy a CD, whatever those are. You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous that the way things have been put together to screw our ability to share and participate in culture.
Fun fact, the Monty Python people started uploading clips of their stuff to YouTube because so many people were uploading Monty Python stuff to YouTube that weren't, was not quote unquote official. And you could embed it and do all the cool stuff, but it was, the official Monty Python thing. Their DVD TV show sales shot up like 2,300%. Because again, call and response.
Wait a minute.
Marketing companies don't even understand that, and it's like marketing is like 1/3 at least psychology. They don't understand the basic human psychology. What has happened?
Game of Thrones is like one of the most pirated shows ever. Yet they're able to make enough money to renew the fifth and sixth, or I think it's the fourth and fifth season. So they just bought more seasons. So if the piracy is destroying them so much, how are they able to fund it? This is a big budget show. How are they able to fund it?
If it were on, just put it on iTunes. Not that that's the best solution, but just as an experiment, is like, what if it was on iTunes and it was a couple bucks or $5 for HD or whatever, an episode? They're not going to lose any money, and they're going to make a mint. Why wouldn't you do that? That seems dumb. But,
because it must go through HBO Go.
Let's not forget the thing a couple episodes ago, the Veronica Mars movie, because that doesn't get any more absurd than that. People had already paid their money. They had paid the money ahead of time before the movie was ever made in order to fund it. And the movie studio was like, I don't know if we can release this movie on the internet because that's just too dangerous. And it's like, they already gave you the money. They already gave you the money. What are you so afraid of? What are you so afraid of?
Oh, God. Netflix is going to be streaming in 4K. Now, you have to have a TV that supports the new H.265 decoding. It has to have the H.265 decoder built in. So not a lot of TVs have that yet, and it has to obviously be a 4K TV. And you have to have internet with 15 megabits per second. Okay, so they can't deliver HD to people who have 100 megabits per second, but Netflix thinks that you're going to be able to get 4K with 15 megabits per second? What?
If you really have a 15 megabit internet connection, you will be fine. That's the important thing about H.265. See, H.265 requires half the bandwidth of H.264, which is what YouTube and everything else is built on. So H.264 is twice as big as H.265, but with 4K, you've got 4 times as many pixels. So it's about double the bandwidth of H.264 because it's, half, and then you quadruple the pixels, and so the net gain is only double. And that makes sense because a long time ago in the videos we said about 7.5 megabit was safe for regular 1080p streaming, and now they're saying 15 megabit for 4K streaming. 15 megabit is eminently reasonable, especially if Comcast and Time Warner are selling you a 100 meg connection. You ought to be able to get that.
It ain't going to work unless Netflix either pays some people or unless you get a VPN. It ain't going to work.
Now, the fun thing there, too, is that 250 gigabyte cap is going to be a whole lot smaller now. I mean, you're talking about an hour of television a day at 4K, not even before you hit that cap.
I think there was a stat somewhere that said that Americans watch like 200 hours of TV a week or something. And I was like, there's no way. It's like, I mean, it was obviously like, that's obviously an exaggeration, but it was like compared to the rest of the world, I was like, oh my God.
Well, people are not going to have their TV on for just background stuff anymore unless they dial down the bandwidth. But I mean, come on, 250 gigabytes. Come on.
Oh man. When's the last time you went on a flight and you had the go-go? You know, the go-go in-flight Wi-Fi thing that costs way too much money. Did you have that last time you flew?
Yeah, I always manage to get the coupons. I know where they keep the coupons, and so I always load up on the coupons. And then it's like, we're gonna give you the first 30 minutes free, and it's like, but you can stack coupons. When that one's gone, I'll use another coupon. So yeah, and apparently the government's going to just record everything that I do on the internet now.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've already been doing that because they want to abide by the Communications Assistance for Law Enforcement Act, or the CALEA. Now, what that is it's just something that says, hey, you guys have to give us complete access and, to assist us in our law enforcement. So it's the way it's worded is very insidious to me. It's like giving all the information away to assist in law enforcement. And anyway, GoGo was just pat on the back because they went above and beyond. So normally you see a lot of different companies out there, a lot of internet companies. They squirm and they complain like Yahoo and Google, but they have to abide by the current laws. So they do turn over information, but they complain about it, they blog about it, they speak about it, they try to go to the Washington D.C. and talk about it, mainly because it's a lot of overhead for them. I don't think they're as concerned about people's privacy as they are about their bottom line, and it's a ton of overhead to have to deal with this sort of BS. However, GoGo went above and beyond. So not only are they not complaining, they're going above and beyond to make sure that all of the government agencies and law enforcement agencies are completely happy and taken care of. And that's a very strange thing to be flying around thinking that anything you do while you're on the flight. And when you're on the flight, they're always trying to sell you everything. So all that information could be public. Hey, this guy's up there buying stuff for this. Maybe he's a bad person in some way,
Are you really going to torrent movies on an airplane? In what universe does it make sense to even worry about this? I mean, the amount of effort that has been wasted worrying about 25 people on a plane sharing a 128 kilobit internet connection. So what is the worry here? That somebody's going to torrent a movie? Or
I don't know.
I legitimately don't understand. Why would you need this?
I think it's because they picked up a phone call somewhere with a bunch of terrorists going like, all right, from now on, we only correspond when on planes because we're not connected to landlines anymore and it's safer. And then they were like, oh, we got to get those planes. We got to know everything that everyone says on a plane.
I'm pretty sure if the terrorist got on the Skype channel that the rest of the plane would punch him out even if he wasn't a terrorist.
I would punch him out pretty fast myself. Yeah. Okay, so a new study came out from the University of Rochester, and they linked aggression that comes from video games, not to violence, but to the challenge. So I'm sure a lot of you guys can identify with this. People like try to throw. How many times have you thrown a controller across the room? And I think the controllers are not as strong as they used to be because games are not as punishing and as challenging as they used to be. Like the Nintendo controller, that thing was a little brick. It was designed to be slammed against the wall, slammed against the front of the TV. The TV may not have been designed for this kind of crap, but the Nintendo controller was designed to withstand the apocalypse because you would be putting it in your mouth, trying to break it, trying to snap it in half, especially if you're playing a game like Dragon's Lair. That game would make you very... It's the Nintendo version, not the movie version type thing.
There were a lot of badly programmed NES games that were like, you could beat this in an hour, but let's make it to where you randomly die. And then it's like, look, we've got a 40-hour game. Ta-da!
Yeah, those games were the ones that were like the death was arbitrary. It was not based upon skill. You had to memorize where the level was because you walk over here and as soon as you hit this one pixel, you just instantly die. Like a board shoots out of the wall and slams into you, and you're like, I didn't know that I couldn't hit that Pixel, why did this happen to me? I didn't do anything wrong. And now you throw the controller. So anyway, that's where most of the aggression comes from in games. And so here's what they did to really prove their study. They took a modded version of Half-Life 2 and they let the players play deathmatch. And they had two different versions. One version is that you could, maim and destroy, and the characters would explode, and there would be gibs everywhere, just massive amounts of gibs and blood spewing and all that craziness. And then there was the other version where when you could just tag people, and there was, it's non-violent death. And they found out that the aggression levels were about the same, no matter if there was violence or no violence. So the aggression is more linked to the challenge. You get into it. I mean, it's the same thing as playing like a sport or something. You're really into it. Your heart beats faster. You turn into an animal. You're like, must win. That's where the aggression comes from. I don't know. I can't think of it.
Well, I mean, just think about your own personal experiences. You read that and it's like, that makes sense. And those people on the news talking about that kid that shut up that school are full of crap.
I cannot beat level 8.1. I'm going to kill everyone. It's not what happened. I don't think I've ever met anyone who got so angry at a video game that they went out and committed an atrocity or something. They just get mad and break their controller, and then they feel really stupid, or they throw their phone across the room, or anybody that's in front of them, just get out of their way.
Well, to be fair, I think the news is not saying that, they got so angry that they immediately, wanted to go get a gun and shoot everybody. It's that they were so angry that they went goth for a while, and then they wanted to go get a gun and shoot everybody. But I'm sure that's not how that happens either.
I know a lot of peaceful goths, man. They sit there and just light their candles and
emo then? I don't know. I don't know the vernacular.
Emo? I don't even know. I don't know. I don't know either. Someone will tell us in the comments, and then we'll feel old or something.
Emo's that guy on Sesame Street. What are you talking about?
Yeah, he's that really sad red character.
Yeah.
Lately, he's been doing the dark makeup under the eyes.
I cut myself. I'll stop now.
Oh, God.
Moving on to hardware. It's time for some hardware.
Yeah. Not quite yet. We're going to talk about Bitcoins and SSL. Bitcoin exchanges SSL is more secure than banks, and this is just several different Hong Kong banks and how they score with their SSL.
Okay, well, the background for this, though, is that right now on the internet, there's a bug, oops, with SSL.
Open SSL.
All of it, pretty much everywhere.
Yeah,
it's Open SSL that most people don't understand. There's actually like 3 or 4 branches of Open SSL, and there's a 1.0.1 branch of Open SSL, which has all these really cool features and blah, blah, blah. And so, I'm hip, I'm cool, I'm Yahoo, I'm going to run that. Yeah, it's got a terrible security problem where it'll leak the memory of the server 64 kilobytes at a time. It's basically untraceable, and it's been in the wild for months. So, yeah, it's really bad.
Okay, everyone is saying, go change your password. Don't go change your password, because there's no sense in changing your password unless the website that you're on has updated its SSL.
Yes.
If it has done that, then you can change your password. But like all the blog articles being like, change your password right now, it doesn't matter if the leak is still there. So, and I don't think a lot of people are going to upgrade it. I would say maybe 1/10 of the websites that are affected will actually upgrade. And that's really scary.
Well, it's really scary because it is leaking, in terms of security vulnerabilities, 1 to 10. This one goes to 11. So it's really, you can get the running active memory of the server 64 kilobytes at a time, which means you've got not just people's logins and passwords, but you get the private keys to the SSL certificate as well. If you're running a vulnerable version of OpenSSL, they could literally collect the private key for the SSL and users and passwords and all kinds of crazy stuff from the website. It needs to be patched immediately.
I wonder if the government's known about this and had their hands on it for a while.
Well, it's funny. There was a very subtle bug that was introduced into the Linux kernel. There's like a private development branch of the Linux kernel, and then there's like a public CVS repo. And there's a very subtle bug introduced into the Linux kernel a few years ago that would allow an attacker to assume root privileges if they exploited it just the right way. But there was no evidence of how that got there. I mean, it was totally like, I mean, if you want to put your tinfoil hat on, it was totally like a no traces left behind Wetworks team that, came in and were like, okay, this is here now, blah, blah, blah. But the Linux kernel maintainers, because they're paranoid old Unix administrators, were like, what's going on? What happened here? This is not good. And they did a bunch of investigating an insane amount of time, and it's like, we couldn't figure out where it came from, but I'm glad we caught it. It's like, wow, that's crazy. Same kind of thing here with OpenSSL, although maybe not. I mean, it's a legitimate bug. It's not like a typo kind of bug the Linux kernel bug was. But if you're running OpenSSL 1.0 or 1.0 FIPS or 9.8 whatever, you don't have a problem. But if you're running 1.01, oh yeah, you got a problem.
Anyway, this is the article we're talking about here. In Hong Kong specifically, that's where the writer's from. He's just showing that the security score of the banks is less than that of the security score of the different Hong Kong-based Bitcoin exchanges. They actually do a better job. They seem to go the extra mile when it comes to security on their websites, and the banks do not.
And for this particular SSL vulnerability, the Bitcoin exchanges were Johnny on the spot dealing with it. Meanwhile, there are banks that, as of right now, you watching this, they haven't fixed the problem. And remember that I said that this was a level 11 problem.
Speaking of turning it to 11, even though this is God, that was a bad segue. But, I want to take my hat off right now for Ed Murray. He is the mayor of Seattle. I don't have a hat on right now. I'll take off my headphones. To you, sir. That was cheesy as hell. So Ed Murray is looking out for the citizenry, and he is reaching out to the people of Seattle. He wants to create a beautiful network in Seattle, and he wants to be able to provide everybody with affordable and good internet. And right now he's saying that they should not allow an internet, he said that they should not allow internet access to become a private monopoly. And right now they do have a contract with Comcast, but it's up in 2016, and they are going to review this contract. And they said if Comcast has not done everything they said, which I'm sure they haven't, then that is over. And, it's really beautiful to see a mayor like this. And again, this is Seattle, so this is like the technology capital of at least the Pacific Northwest, but almost the country, arguably San Francisco. But I think Seattle may even be, in my personal opinion, more of a nerdy place. But it's really nice to see someone like this that actually gets it. He's going to the citizenry. They even tried, in Seattle, they even tried to do a private initiative where they got together with, I believe it was a local company, or they tried to spin up a local company, like a startup, and get all of the dark fiber that's under the city and turn that into something that would be like 50 times faster than the fastest thing that Comcast had for about the same price. So that didn't happen. They didn't get funding, but they are still looking into different ways to turn their infrastructure and in the city into something that's more like a public utility and not something that is governed by one of these private monopolies. And that is a beautiful thing. And I hope that different city leaders, different city councilmen, and different mayors in different parts of the world look at this and read his blog article. I'll go ahead and bring up the blog article here. I hope they look at this, because this is how you change things, and this is how you take control of the internet. He's against internet censorship. He's against throttling. He wants to make sure that whoever is the ISP in that area, he wants to make sure that if his businesses need to get onto a service or use an app, he wants to make sure that the connection to that is not throttled. It's a beautiful blog article. Made me very, very happy to see this.
Well, he clearly understands the separation of the quote-unquote public utilities infrastructure and then the companies that provide services on top of that infrastructure. So, I mean, the first post, or the first part of his blog post is copied in the article here, and that really explains it. But to me, the really surprising thing is that the quote-unquote normal Comcast package in Seattle is apparently 50 by 10. That is a absolutely pitiful package for...
Yeah.
I mean, that city is home to Microsoft and tons of super high-tech companies. Why don't they have like 500 meg packages or 100 meg packages or something reasonable?
I was recently living out in the woods, and where I was living out in the middle of nowhere, the maximum speed was 300 from Comcast. 300, and I think it was 50 up, which is kind of weird for... I guess it's about proportional to all the other different packages, but still, in the middle of the woods... You can't do that in Seattle, like the technology hub of the Pacific Northwest. Man,
Seems
that's
odd.
weird. Really
I mean,
odd.
the package is probably available in spots, but apparently the performance requirement for Comcast was only 50 by 10. So there are a lot of people that are like, that's all they can get. I mean, I'm sure there are people that can get faster, but for the franchise, I guess that's all they were required to provide. I don't really understand the details.
While we're talking about Comcast and Seattle, again, you guys are awesome. Just keep this up and lead the way for the rest of the country and don't stand for any BS. He said that there's nothing they can do to stop the merger, but there are some things that they can do to stop Comcast from running away in their city and destroying the internet. Now, Comcast right now they're going in front of up the Capitol Hill and they're trying to make their case for the $45.2 billion merger that's coming up, and the case that they're making is comical. There's a picture of Cohen there on the screen. He is becoming one of my favorite comedians. I think my favorite all-time comedian is Pat Robertson. But this guy is pretty damn funny. So here are the reasons why this merger would be great. He's proclaiming that the deal would be amazing. He's saying that it's going to create these benefits between different consumers. And he's just saying that anybody who says otherwise, anybody who says that this is not going to benefit consumers, not going to benefit businesses, is irrational.
Is one of the benefits to consumers lower prices? No, don't expect that. Direct quote from earlier this year.
Yeah, and they're not exactly even saying what the benefits are. They're just saying that, hey, this is going to be so beneficial. I mean, it's okay. So that's it, and it's pretty ambiguous, right? So then he's saying that wrong button. There we go. He's saying that that nobody needs to worry about potential harms from Comcast growing larger because there's so much competition, and they list competition here, and this is why this is hilarious. So, they keep talking about all the competition that they have, and I don't know where it is, but they've released this chart here, and here are the broadband providers in the top 20 metropolitan statistical areas, and New York City has a total of 29 broadband providers. 29. 20
I think something's a little misleading here.
I don't know what the criteria is for counting what constitutes, a broadband provider.
Well, I've got a hint for you. If you can get on Starbucks Wi-Fi from across the street, Starbucks is a broadband provider.
According to the criteria, Starbucks was like number 26 on the list out of 29, and I think Ed's Coffee is just above them because he has an AC router installed.
Yeah, pretty much.
Anybody with an AC router, yep, the broadband provider. So they've released this.
I think it was Al Franken that was like, well, now wait a minute. If you look back at some of the old stuff Comcast was saying in years gone by, they were saying, our number one competitor is Time Warner, and now that they're doing a merger, they're like, well, we don't compete anyway, so it's completely fine. And it's like, you were lying. You were lying before, or you're lying now. Which is it?
He says that consumers are the big winners. That's the best part of this whole thing. Consumers are the big winners in this transaction.
Meanwhile, cable rates have gone up 50% since 2003 and have gone up 50% again from 2003 to 1996 because of deregulation and mergers. It used to be the case that you couldn't have, by law, you could not have a cable company that owned this much in terms of reach. It was against the law for a company to be this big with this much control of the media. And that's because the people that set those rules were like, it's probably a bad idea if one company can set the direction and taste of American media. And then in 1996, we were like, we don't need that anymore. And now it's like, there's only one company. What the hell happened?
He also said that they're, when they get together and they get this massive company, and they're going to start investing in things. And you know what that's going to do? That's going to spur all the rest of the industry to also invest. But when you look at this, when you look at what's happening right now, it's quite the opposite. AT&T is doing everything they can not to invest. Verizon is doing exactly that, and then they're trying, instead of running fiber to the home and that sort of thing, they're trying to put 4G antennas on people's house so they can control the bandwidth and so they can give you really crappy service and just put a few antennas here and there, keep all the money in their own pockets, so maybe in the future Verizon and AT&T can get together and start trying to buy each other. That's what they're doing. They're all keeping the money themselves so they can try to buy other companies. So
if you guys don't believe that this is going to happen in America, this is already played out in Australia. I'm sorry, folks in Australia, but your internet stuff is like 2 tin cans and a string. It's really bad.
You know, I just heard like collectively like 100 people right now yell at their computer screen. Thank you guys. I'm so sick of hearing about how bad you have it in America. Come to Australia. Come to Australia.
The pilot project for what these American companies are doing was Australia. And things went so well there, they're bringing it to America. So soon we too will have tin cans and a string for our internet connections.
Yeah, so we're angry with you, Australia.
Yeah, you guys should have grabbed your torches and pitchforks and revolted against your corporate masters. Now we've got to deal with it, and everybody here is too fat to deal with anything.
Oh, God. Beyond all this, they are considering Wi-Fi-based phone service. And I'm not sure if this is necessarily the worst thing. This is just a different type of phone service. It's similar to cell service, but it's reliant upon Wi-Fi connections, and they're going to use various Wi-Fi connections. Google has considered doing this in areas that they have Google Fiber. I don't know if this will be, as long as it's really cheap. We're talking like $5 a month cheap, because, I mean, for them it's going to be almost free. Like literally, you buy a handset and you start using it, and the service is not going to be the same as cell service, unless you are, you know, someone who goes from the home to the office and nowhere else. You probably still need a cell phone as well. This could supplement some of that if you're, you know, worried about eating up too much bandwidth on your cell phone, or you're worried about, you know, just a poor service in certain areas of town. This may be able to supplement that, but these Wi-Fi hotspot fueled phone services, I'm not sure if I'm buying them or not, but they could be good for a few people here and there. That's it. I mean, I can't see how
this
different
is snake oil. This can't not be snake oil.
You know, this is very similar to people who would get like what's not the iPhone, but the like the little iPod Touch, and then install, I don't know, Skype or something on there, and then use that over Wi-Fi. It's like the same thing, really. I mean, it's like one of the guys on the team had that functionality on his phone, and they're like, "Isn't that illegal? Wait a minute, we can make money on that." That's pretty much
most of the consumer grade Wi-Fi is too flaky and terrible to deal with more than a handful, like 1 or 2 devices on the Wi-Fi at once. So this doesn't even make any sense. Now, Comcast and some of the other ones have been rolling out like better quality wireless gear in their modems. Of course, you know, you as the consumer are paying for that, even though it benefits you some, but them being able to have a giant public wireless network off of your electricity and modem. See how that works? So this may go hand in hand with something like that, but at the same time, it's like, I don't think you're going to be able to hand off modem to modem reliably enough, because if you can't do low ping gaming and reliable gaming on wireless, voice, never going to happen.
All right, guys, we're going to actually talk about hardware in this video. I know we've been separating them. I would like some feedback from you guys as to the separation. The feedback I've had so far has been mostly positive. People, one guy actually jumped in the comments and was like, "Listen, I've stopped watching your stuff because I got sick of hearing about the ISPs and the NSA, and I really just cared about the hardware stuff." And I personally feel that the cultural stuff and the ISPs and stuff, it has a broader implication than hardware. Hardware changes every year, but this stuff, I don't know. I feel like it's a deeper cause. However, putting science in the hardware makes me feel good, because science also has a deep ripple effect throughout eternity, whereas every year hardware changes. I don't know. Anyway.
I think Bob Ross was like, "Oh, you got to take the good with the bad." In one of his videos, he's like, "Oh, it's a happy little accident." It's like, you can't have, I can't remember, but it was really inspirational. It was like, I'm going through one of those sad times right now, but you got to have those every now and then to know when you have the happy times. We try to do that on an episode by episode basis.
Yeah, but sometimes it's just so damn sad. I think the hardware and the gaming does cheer it up a bit for me, at least the gaming. It's like time to escape. But anyway, I don't know what to exactly call it, like the 2 different episodes. I mean, the first, the core of what the tech is about the culture and the internet and that sort of thing. And I think that's why most people watch. But, we also talk about a lot of hardware. So what should we call the hardware segment? The last time I just called it like, the tech, hardware, science, and gaming episode 2. But some people it confused some people, so it's really easy to go into YouTube and just change those names. So
I can't read. I'm confused.
Why is this episode 2? Well, it's episode 2 of the hardware portion, but maybe that's a bad name. Anyway, let's talk about hardware. We're going to talk about hardware in this episode, and it's going to be a little longer.
Micro 3D printer Kickstarter raises $1 million overnight.
That it does. Now this is a tiny device. I think the reason it raised so much money is because the price point. For $199, you get one. It's not big. It's not going to be able to print anything big, but you get one. And the other thing is that the what do you call the stuff that they use to print it? My brain just went black. Not enamel. The filament. Yeah, the filament it's not proprietary filament, and that was really important when you make when you make something like this. If you have proprietary filament and a bunch of proprietary parts, it's going to be very complicated and difficult for people to deal with. And then you also have the idea of like, what happens if this goes under? I'm not going to be able to get my filament. I'm not going to be able to get replacement parts. But thankfully, they're using stuff that you can use on a variety of different 3D printers. And it's a simple little unit, but I don't know, 109. We should get one of these. $199.
It looks really cool. I mean, it's not really huge. The spool goes underneath, so it's out of the way, and check out the Kickstarter. It's really nice.
Okay, but look at, my God, this is going to break a lot of records. It's almost at $2 million. It'll probably be over $2 million by the time you guys watch this video. And the goal was $50,000, and there's 27 days left. That is ridiculous. That's going to get so much money. Probably get one. I don't have a knack for this sort of thing, like Barnacle and Timmy Tech, I think, has one of these now, and even you've been like old school. You've had the CNC machines and the lathes and all that stuff in the basement.
I have constructed a 3D printer. I'm working on calibration. I'm currently able to do 100 micron stuff, no problem, and I think I'm going to be able to dial it down to about 40.
So wait a minute, you used your lathe and your CNC machine to build one of these?
Yes.
That's awesome.
I ordered some parts from the internet too. I mean, it is what it is. It's basic. It ended up being basically a clone of the original MakerBot replicator, which was open source, which is okay. But I've done all the little hacks and slashy things to fix the accuracy, and I used different stepper motors because I'm awesome like that.
I don't think any of the other YouTubers out there can say that they built their own 3D printer. You basically 3D printed your 3D printer.
Well, no, I machined the parts for my 3D printer.
Well, you know what I mean.
Some people 3D print the parts for their 3D printer. I machined some parts for 3D, but it really, it took me a lot longer than I wanted to, because I was originally going to CNC the parts, because I've collected all the parts. I just haven't put it together. A router table so that I could cut the pieces out of Lexan, which is how the original MakerBot was built, because it's very difficult for me to cut the pieces out of Lexan with the CNC mill, because the work area is not large enough. But I have a complete XY assembly out of an old tape drive that was refrigerator sized, that I was going to turn into like a 4x8 plexiglass cutter, and I have all the parts to do that. I just never did. And then it was like, I know a guy, I can call him and he can do some stuff for me, and the electronics are no problem. I've got the electronics in stock pretty much. So it's like, we'll just do it. It's fine.
All right, let's talk about Seagate's new 6 terabyte drive. How about that? So the new 6 terabyte drive, it's okay. They're not going to use the old school slow shingled magnetic recording technology. What the hell are they using here? This is
really interesting, because Western Digital came out and they're like, look, we have put helium.
No, that was Hitachi.
Oh, it was Hitachi.
Yeah, Hitachi did the helium-filled thing. Yeah.
Okay. So Hitachi did the helium-filled thing, and it's like, look, 6 terabytes, helium. Oh, my God. It doesn't, have turbulence and blah, blah, blah. Seagate figured out a way to do it without it. So that's really, really impressive.
Well, they're not using helium either. So what are they using here? Did they even say here?
It's just a normal drive. I mean, it's got a breather hole. You can see the breather hole in the picture. So just normal. I think they just put a ton of platters in here. So this thing probably has like 11 billion platters.
It's going to be as heavy as a house.
I don't know how that's going to be for reliability. I don't know how that's going to be for turbulence. We got to get like 10 and see how they hold up.
Oh, they said it. They said that it's rated for 24/7 operation. And they say that it's rated for 550 terabytes per year. And they say it's going to be like pretty much enterprise grade. This is not like the consumer stuff here. But a drive like that, historically, the larger the drive, the higher the failure rate.
Yes.
So if they have fixed the failure rate, I was about to build a brand new NAS, and just because of the failure rate on the 3 and 4 terabyte drives, I was thinking about just going with like 15 2 terabyte drives. That was going to be ridiculous, noisy, generate a lot of heat, and also take up a bigger, a lot more space. But it would give me as much, storage as I need, and it would cost a lot of money too. But damn, this would be really cool. I could just get like, I don't know, a handful of these, like 5 of these, instead of getting 15 2 terabyte drives, and just be done with it.
I was also
That'd be
impressed
pretty
by the
cool.
read speed of up to 420 megabytes per second, because that is head and shoulders above anything this class of mechanical drive can do. So I mean, if they've got a lot of platters and stuff, how do they do that?
I don't know either. I mean, that's getting into SSD territory right there.
I'm sure the latency's still going to be god awful, but
Well, once it gets
how do you
going,
know?
yeah. I mean, if you're transferring a large file, once it gets going, hey, good.
Well, you combine this with SSD acceleration. I mean, a pool of 8 of these in a ZFS, 10 of these in a RAID Z2 pool with 512 gigs or a terabyte of SSD acceleration, the L2 ARC or ZL cache or whatever. I mean, that's pretty enterprisey for a fraction of the cost of quote unquote enterprise gear.
All right, let's talk about the Radeon R9 295X2. It's the dual GPU card on one giant PCB. Who makes the water cooler on this one? I forget. Is it Aztec or something? Yeah. Anyway, it's the NVIDIA announced their Titan Z, and we mentioned this last week, and now some reviews are out from like Forbes magazine. Forbes magazine is reviewing the R9 295X. Linus didn't get a review sample, and Elric didn't get a review sample, and we didn't get a review sample. I don't know who was in charge of the marketing for this, but they seem to have neglected the YouTubers, and that's a bit interesting. I guess Forbes does have a very large readership. Austin Evans did get one of these, so I did check out his review, and it looks like it's going to be insanely fast. Price per dollar, it's not the best thing in the world, but it's not the worst thing in the world either, even though it's $1,500. But it's performance-wise, it's up there with like a couple 780s, and the price to performance ratio, I mean, it costs about as much as two 780 Ti's if you get the fancy versions. I've not played with it myself, so I don't know how exactly it really is, but I can also imagine there being some weirdness with the drivers, because it's two GPUs in one, and there's going to be some weirdness with crossfire and that sort of thing here and there, but
It comes with its own liquid cooler, and they recommend you mount the heatsink above the card. So,
to keep it from falling apart.
No, I guess to help the heat move above the card.
Move above it, yeah. Yeah, it's the benchmarks are pretty insane, like pretty damn insane. It's the only card that I've ever seen that can actually play most of the modern games at 4K. Yeah, pretty wild.
So what you're telling me is we need a 16 nanometer single GPU version of this tomorrow.
Yeah, and I don't
Get
think
on
it's
it,
gonna
AMD.
happen. AMD ain't going to be doing that. It'll be NVIDIA or Intel. They're the ones who are pushing the nanometer scale. Hey, PC Perspective got one. They did a pretty good review on this as well. The one thing I was really worried about was the sound. How loud is this going to be? So there you can see the sound levels between all the GeForce 780 Ti and SLI is slightly louder than this. So it does not look like it's as loud as the stock 290X. The stock 290X is basically a vacuum cleaner, but it's slightly louder than like the Asus R9 290X Direct CU2 that has the custom fancy cooling unit with the one fan that's like a combination blower impeller. Those things are nice, and they're decently quiet. But yeah, interesting card.
It is a really interesting card, and it's also, I mean, it's worth mentioning it's half the price of the Titan Black Edition or whatever.
Yeah, I'm thinking the Titan's going to be a bit faster than this, but hell, this is pretty insane. I can't.
We don't actually know.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't have one. And I know Pistol kind of wants to put one of these in her system because we just did some tests, and my Intel with and I've got the GeForce 780 Ti is slightly faster, but it's not faster when you take the price to performance. However, if we put one of these in her system might be faster, will be faster, but then the price to performance ratio was probably going to balance out because I've got a much faster CPU, Yeah. Anyway, all right. DDR4. So Hynix reveals the world's first 128 gigabyte DDR4 memory module. Look Look at all those. Look at all that memory on there. That's insane.
We're going to put chips on there sideways because we can't fit them any other way.
Just all directions. It looks really goofy, actually. That one right there in the middle looks really silly. It's just
That's the
kind of off
buffer,
on
I
its own.
think. This is some type of registered memory, I'm sure.
Yeah. Now, it runs
It's still
at
based on
1.2
8
volts.
gigabit DDR4 chips. That's the interesting thing because there's what are the company? It's like Intelligent Dynamics or something. I don't know.
Right.
That they figured out a way to put these 8 gig silicon dies in one chip for 16 gigabit because all of the industry pretty much is set up to produce these 8 gigabit DDR3 and 4 chips, and that's part of where the 32 gigabyte limitation comes from on socket 1150 because it's unregistered and it doesn't support the memory densities of 16 gigabit per chip. But interestingly, the Intel Atom Avoton does support that, so you can run 64 gigabytes on an Atom, but only 32 gigabytes on a Xeon 1150.
To further the conversation when it comes to DDR4, it looks like DDR4 is going to be the last in the DDR protocol. That'll be it. It looks like that. This is going to be it. After that, things are going to change. Right now, in order to deal with RAM these days, I mean, RAM's gotten to a point where it's kind of plateaued in speed. We're really reducing. I mean, you can improve the frequencies and that sort of thing, but then sometimes, depending on the motherboard or improving the frequencies, it's going to create conflicts with the with the bus, it's going to create conflicts with the CPU frequency. Just going to create a lot of different weird issues, but it's kind of plateaued. Right now what they're doing is they're bringing the power down. And also the topology needed, is that a train out there? You guys can probably hear that train. I'm just going to keep going. You guys can deal with the train unless it gets closer. Also, the topology on these things is really complicated. It makes it very difficult for people to design the PCBs and also build the PCBs. So moving to a different standard would change a lot of that and improve a lot of that.
Here's a fun thing for you to do. If you've got a motherboard laying around, or the next time you put your computer together, have you ever really looked at the traces on the motherboard? Like, just look at it, just stare at it, and think to yourself, what's going on here? It goes back to that critical thinking thing we were talking about earlier in the video, where it's like nobody thinks for themselves anymore. They want to be told what to think. I was like, all right, I'm telling you to do something now. Look at the traces on the motherboard, and you will see traces that go up and down, up and down, up and down, and it's just like a zigzag wiggle waggle pattern on the back of the motherboard. And it's like, what on earth is going on there? The reason is because the speed of electricity through wire is such that that wire had to be longer than it was if it was a direct path in order to be about the same length as all the other wires. And so finally with DDR4, manufacturers and stuff have said, we've had enough. We're not going to do that. We're going to adopt a serial protocol that lets us talk to RAM at really high speeds, as has already happened with PCI. So PCI Express is a serial protocol. You have channels that go with it. It's a really high speed serial exchange. It's not a parallel bus, because if you have a really old motherboard and you look at the old like PCI slots that are very slow. I mean, 33 megahertz, 66 megahertz is what we're talking about for like legacy PCI. If you look at the motherboard there, you'll see the same deal with the traces. They'll have this wiggle waggle pattern, and they'll go off and loop around and just be strangely long. And it's like, well, it's because the speed of electricity is such that the signal from all those wires, when it leaves the processor, it leaves in parallel to the RAM, or from the RAM to the processor. Those signals have to arrive at their destination at the same time, and they weren't. So the designer was like, I need to make this wire longer because these other wires are longer and this one's not as long, so I've got to make it longer somehow. And so you get the strange patterns. That's why.
Today we released a media server video full of all kinds of useful information. If you want to figure out a way to organize your digital life, I highly recommend that you guys go over and check out our video here. It's titled Home Server 101, Plex Media, Xbox Media Center, FreeNAS, Myth TV, etc. And a lot of people are asking
just an
for Myth
overview.
TV. Yeah. And we may get way nerdier on individual elements of this. A lot of people have been asking for Myth TV. And I think that's just because they've heard about Myth TV more than they've heard about perhaps Plex Media or something like that, or even Xbox Media Center. You're not extremely excited about Myth TV, right?
I'm really not. Myth TV is good for collecting media from your television through your set-top box, which I believe is probably legal in my jurisdiction. I'm not sure about format shifting DVDs and that other kind of stuff. I would like to think that format shifting DVDs is okay, but I don't know. At least I'm not confident enough to comment about it on YouTube. How about that? So,
yeah, exactly. I mean, there was some sick guy with a beard who was talking about it the other day, but we're not allowed to talk about that either.
So there are other ways you can collect media. I mean, but for me, the home server thing is like a 10 or 15 year project. I mean, I've been having a need to maintain a file history since I was like 9, and I don't like losing a whole bunch of files, and so I really like having all of that organized and on a different machine that I'm not messing with, that is actually a piece of equipment that I use for 5 to 10 years at a time. So for me, it's a home server.
Yeah, I really enjoying having FreeNAS, because even though I've gone through like 5 different computer builds, I still have the same FreeNAS box that has all the stuff on it. There's some redundancy built in, and if one of the hard drives goes bad, I just pull it out and put a new one in there, and then it all syncs up and it's happy. ZFS is a wonderful thing, Wendell.
I've done things like I just got a new computer, and I just turned my old computer off, booted my new computer up, and then restored my last backup from the network, and it's like, yep, everything's fine, ready to go.
Yep, it saves you a lot of time when you're ready to get down to business. All right, also in hardware news this week, this is kind of hardware science news, but yeah, kind of hardware. The Aroma Fork. I can't wait to play some practical jokes with this. Now, what the Aroma Fork does is it tricks your mind and enhances the flavors. Therefore, your tongue can taste like 5 or 6 different flavors. It says it here in the article, but I'm too lazy to look over there and look and see what it is. But your nose, it can detect trillions of different smells. I mean, we're not like dogs or anything, but we've got decent noses. So what they do, I mean, smell is such an important part of the eating process. A lot of people that are snobs about like wine and food, they want to get it all on their nose and that sort of thing. So they took that idea and they applied it to this, and there's these like little bits of aroma that they attach to the fork right here, right underneath the fork, and there's like, I don't know, a ton of different, was it like 21 different flavors? That's what it comes with, but there's way more flavors available. And you put a little chocolate on there while you're eating cake, and then you smell the chocolate, and it enhances the flavor. You know what I want to do with this? I want to get like the sushi scented one and give it to somebody who's eating like, I don't know, a bowl of cereal or something, and then just watch them go like, ugh. That's what I want. That's the application that I want. Practical jokes with this thing. Like mixing pickles and ice cream. Well, you give that to a pregnant person, they're going to enjoy that. Why is that always the joke? Pickles and ice cream. Is it true? I don't know. I've never had a baby. I don't know. That was a tangent.
I think there's a version of this where, a college prank is they put drops of acetone on the little smeller thing, and then you take a bite, and then all of a sudden your nose is on fire and you can't breathe, and it's very bad.
All right, it's about time to talk about some gaming, I believe.
Gaming. Well, there's a whole with PAX. PAX is coming up.
Yeah, I'm busy looking at a dog slamming his. Sorry. PAX is coming up. Yep, we're going to be at PAX right now, and we got a bunch of stuff coming out right about now. So if there's too many videos and you guys hate indie games, I'm very, very sorry, but you can deal with it for just a few days. And we're sorry to clog up your subscriptions, but you should watch all the videos because they're awesome, and we're giving away stuff like crazy people. So anyway, what's going on outside of PAX right now? The world's largest game of Tetris, actually probably the world's largest video game, has happened here in Philadelphia. I just click play. What's going on? Don't be loud, please, Ars Technica. What is this? There we go. Yep. People are playing Tetris on the side of a building right there.
Now, I saw the Chaos Computer Club in Germany do this several years ago. They had a building you could actually write a program and upload a thing to a website, and then you could call in with your mobile, and the program that you uploaded to the website would then play on the building. And that was a special project, I guess, for a building that was being renovated or torn down or something, that the Chaos Computer Club did in Germany. So it's been done, but this is pretty cool.
And this is apparently bigger, I think, is the main thing. It's just that they went for the biggest. So, and a lot of people are acting like, yeah, it hasn't been done, but yeah, you're right. The Chaos Computer Club. I think hackers kind of get a lot of things started.
Yeah.
And then everyone else is like, hey, let's do this and make it mainstream. Watch Dogs, the requirements are out. Here are the requirements. And it will force you to use Uplay even if you're on Steam.
Well, I won't be buying it or playing it.
You know, Uplay, it's not as bad. I feel like all these companies, you know, like Origin and Ubisoft, they should be, or Origin or EA and Ubisoft, they should be allowed to have their own platform like Valve. If it's a free market and all that stuff, they should be allowed to have their own platform.
I completely agree with that. However,
Yeah,
they're not allowed to install crap on my machine.
Exactly. Their platforms are crap. But here's the thing that gets me is you can buy this game through Steam. So they know Steam is the choice platform, and they're making their stuff available on Steam. It's also available on Uplay. If you buy it on Steam, you are still forced to install Uplay. So when you double-click the game, it's going to be like, oh, well, let me open up Uplay. And you're going to have Steam and Uplay open at the same time. That is not how you guys do it. If people buy it on Steam, they want to play it on Steam, and let them play it on Steam. You've made the money. And I'm sorry that they didn't use it on Uplay. Offer like a $5 discount, and then people can have it on Uplay. And just see what happens. See if people want to save $5, $10 or whatever. See if they get it on Uplay. That's what you should be doing, not this. Anyway, rant over there. A new Wolfenstein trailer is out, and the game looks like it's going to be, I don't know, the graphics are pretty good. I can't really say much about what I think about the game yet. It's just interesting, I guess. I don't know. But I hate the fact that they are encouraging you to pre-order, and they're holding a beta to Doom over your head. So if you pre-order this game, you get to be in the Doom beta. And that's like wrong, because I really want to be in the Doom beta, but I hate pre-ordering games. I hate when they make you do this kind of stuff. I don't really believe in pre-ordering unless you know it's going to be good. I don't know.
Clearly they know that most of the audience thinks the same way, and it's like, how can we discourage this behavior? Yes, I know. We'll do this thing that makes you tempted to pre-order anyway. Yes.
You bastards! Anyway, it's time for me to get ready to go to PAX. This is yeah, it's been a hell of a crazy day. And I've got a lot of more work to do before tomorrow. We are taking off to go to PAX. So we'll see you guys there. Hope you guys enjoyed this extra long episode before the show. And yeah, you guys are awesome. Thanks for clicking on the links over there. That really helps keep us alive. And
thanks for tech support.
Yeah, the tech support is really doing it for us right now. Because the ad money goes up and down. You never know what it's going to be. Some months it's really bad, and some months it's okay. But tech support is like keeping us alive. And if I could just find a few people to hire locally, God, that would be amazing. It's been more difficult to find people in the woods than I thought. So yeah. All right, guys, we will see you now if you're watching PAX videos today and tomorrow.